So the live session is being recorded, and after the recording finishes, I'll be posting it onto the Decolonizing Education YouTube channel. So you'll be able to access it through Twitter, and I'm going to put the hashtag on chat. So anybody who wants to carry on the conversations during the filming or also after it's recorded, you can follow the hashtag. And it's going to be the same as the one we did for the boys in education. So the hashtag is Black in Education. So if anybody, including the panelists, want to tweet or go on any kind of social media during that time, then that is the hashtag to use. Okay, so we'll make a start just to honor everybody's time, and it is being recorded, so those that are coming late will be able to catch up with anything that they miss. Those of you in attendance, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We have some incredible young women with us today that are going to share their stories. I will start off by asking everybody to abide by the principles we usually have in these spaces, and I'll go over them again. They are, in order to maintain this space as a respectful space and as safe as it possibly can be. So what I will say is I'll be monitoring the chat. Please be as respectful as possible. Anything disrespectful in the chat or anything that I or the panelists deem to be disrespectful won't be tolerated and you will be removed. Or everybody is muted. So other than the panelists, nobody is able to engage verbally into the session. Please ask any questions that you feel are appropriate to the panelists, but bear in mind that they may or may not respond, depending on what they feel comfortable responding to. Okay, so I will leave it at that and we will start. Zahra, do you want to start us off? I'll just unmute you. There you go.
Hello, my name is Zahra and I grew up in Sheffield, but I'm currently living down south in London. Okay, so we're here today to talk about whether we think the education system or schools have failed Black girls. And as a Black girl who grew up in the North, I can say firmly yes. To be able to rationalize a lot of the trauma that I went through at secondary school, I had to figure out why. I had to figure out why I went through so much racial abuse. And I realized the answer was because of ignorance. When I was at school, I would get all sorts of things said to me, like there was a rumor that I came to England on a donkey. That one was beyond me. But yeah, there was a rumor that I came to England on a donkey. They used to call me fish lips, you know, things like that. One time when I was 16 years old, I had my afro out. And in history class, they started getting pieces of tissue, putting little spitballs on it and just throwing it into my hair to see if they could catch it, essentially. Like, I walked into the dining room at lunchtime, people were laughing at me because of my hair. They said I looked like an African bush girl. It was horrific. I think that day was the first day I had my first ever mental breakdown. I fully lost it because there was this little boy that was trying me as well. He was making all these jokes, saying all these racial slurs to impress his friends, and everyone was just stood around laughing. Nobody came to my aid as well. And I just had my first breakdown in front of everybody. I just started crying and nobody, stopped to do anything. And anytime things like this would happen and I'd go to the school, we'd have things, the teachers would say like, oh, that's not very nice, or that's mean, isn't it? The way they made it seem like it was just everyday bullying, everyday being picked on, even though this was literally all because I was Black. Do you understand what I mean? I used to have, one time someone threw a banana peel at me when I was walking to school, or people would make monkey noises at me. Do you know what I mean? I used to, chill in the library for most of the time when I was at secondary school. I ate lunch at the library because I was so ostracized by basically everybody else. And every time I tried to reach out to school, they did basically nothing about it. One kid, they were like, oh, he has ADHD, just leave him. Or this other kid, they're like, oh, no, he wasn't being racist. He was just being mean. He's known for that, etc., etc. They would always make excuses for why things like this happen. And this went up until the age of 16. So I remember after that whole Afro incident happened, I started relaxing my hair to try and make it nice and long. So, so I wouldn't be made fun of. I kept relaxing it and putting heat on it and relaxing it and putting heat on it, and it fell out. My hair literally fell out because of all the abuse I was putting on my hair, because of the abuse I was getting from school. And I think that's when I realized that it had gone too far. I think that's when I realized this whole thing had gone too far. And I started teaching myself about what it meant to be Black. And that's when I realized that all these kids, as hateful and horrible and vile as they weren't born like that. Do you know what I mean? This is the things that they learned from home, and school hadn't corrected this miseducation that they got from home. School had just allowed it to breed. So, for example, all these kids telling me that I should go back to my own country, or I should go back to my poor wasteland that's Africa. If they'd known that there would be no British Empire, there would be no Great Britain without Africa and Asia. None of this, what we have today, would even exist without Africa and Asia. If they were taught this, they would think twice before telling me to go back to my country. Do you understand what I mean? So that's when I realized that knowledge is everything. And if we arm ourselves with knowledge and arm ourselves with good education and arm these kids as well with good education, we can start to minimize this ignorance and minimize the pain that we go through as Black girls at school, made to feel ugly, made to feel subpar, especially compared to white girls, all the time being compared, being made to feel like we weren't even women, being made to feel like we weren't desirable or beautiful. Like that can't run, and that can't continue to run. I'm scared of having kids. I'm absolutely petrified of having a Black daughter and her going to school and having to go through that, because that pain that I went through, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Even though I'm 20 years old now and I've grown and things have happened after that, I still have panicked moments where I think I'm at school. I have nightmares. I wake up shaking thinking I'm back at school. That's how horrific it is. I have moments of self-doubt, all because of the way I was treated at school, and nobody took me seriously. It was just bullying. So I think, of course, it has to start with the schools. The schools have to first recognize they have a problem. When they recognize there's a problem, then we can start fixing it. But they're not ready to recognize it yet. So yeah, that's my outlook, and that's my 2 pence on the matter.
Thank you so much, Zahra. I'm going to go to Rihanna next.
Hi.
Hi, Rihanna.
Hi. So what happened to me one day in school was I was in a lesson, and like these little like white boys in my class were implying that I couldn't afford stuff, and because I'm mixed race, they were saying that I wasn't half white, like because I'm half Black, there's something wrong with that. Like implying that my mum was like, I don't know, but they were like implying stuff that I couldn't afford this and that because I was half Black, and they were saying that I've come from this kind of area just because I'm Black. And I feel like the teachers didn't care, and like they just brushed it off. And I feel like if the teachers aren't even educated, how would the kids be educated?
Is there anything else that you want to add, Rihanna?
Not really.
No? Okay, we can come back to you if there's something else that you want to add later. Okay. Thank you. Lovino, do you want to go next?
Good afternoon, Dr. Muna, panel and participants. I'm Lorena Thompson-Kerr. I just turned 12, I live in London, and in the next 8 minutes, I will share with you 2 recent experiences. On the 1st of October, at the start of Black History Month, I was given this silhouette to use in an art project on identity. The teacher's comment was, well, most of you look like this. In a class of 23, there were just 2 other Black girls, so the statement was factually correct, but it was wrong. I was offended. My mother, in response, attempted to school the school on how offensive this whitewashing was, and about the history of racist stereotypes in art. She told them that ethnically appropriate silhouettes should be used. The school's response was, we pride ourselves on being a diverse and inclusive school. There was zero acknowledgement of their wrongdoing and no apology for the offence they had caused. The second incident took place a few weeks ago on the 3rd of June. By now, I'd been withdrawn from my highly selective girls' school and had just 2 days before started at an online school, where my identity was unknown because I did not use my camera or microphone in lessons and instead just type into the text box. That particular session was to discuss Black Lives Matter and Pride, but it began with a geography teacher referencing Stephen Lawrence as a gang member, stating that Black people live in Grenfell Tower type blocks in Black ghettos. He went on to say that white people live in nice areas on the outskirts of London, that white people don't mix with Black people, that you're more likely to join a gang if you're Black, and that Black kids are poorly educated. Typing away into the chat box, I was enraged, but determined not to let this go. I challenged him on all of his misconceptions, and I did not stop until he retracted the comments about Stephen Lawrence. From what I could tell, as some had their cameras on, the children were almost exclusively white. One child from her name was likely Asian. And though there were some really positive comments that showed an anti-racist stance from some of the children, many began to speculate whether, based on the teacher's statements, whether Stephen's death was a gang initiation gone wrong. I could feel my heart beating. I was devastated. What these two incidents share in common is the issue of visibility, or rather invisibility. At my girls' school, my Black girl presence was of no consequence. It did not matter to my art teacher. My Black girl identity was irrelevant and not enough to be visible to her. To her, I was an aberration, an interloper, out of place in that mostly white, very middle class environment. And at my new online school, my actual invisibility empowered the racist to spout his vile beliefs. I do wonder how different the lesson would have been if he had known I was Black. Maybe not. Over the past 9 months, micro and macroaggressions, dismissive attitudes and attacks have challenged my Black female presence, but they make me more determined to play a part in dismantling the structural racism that prevents Black children from excelling at school. One of the ways I do this is to always challenge and to ensure that there is a record of this. My mother is in the meeting, so I'll say this carefully. She's unrelenting, savvy and fearless. She will chew her races for breakfast and still want her 2 slices of toast with marmalade. With her backing, I'm able to challenge. On a personal level, though I'm naturally socially awkward, I push to make myself visible, positively and on my own terms. And so I strive to excel, I strive to win, I strive to be the best. When they see me, they must see me as the Rihanna, Black Girl Magic, winner. But I recognise that not everyone has a tiger for a mum and a dad whose consistent, quiet presence backs their mother 100%. And I recognise that so many are not in environments that give them the opportunity to shine. So what we need is an equalities officer in every school. We need a national support system for children and parents. We need a centralised place for registering concerns, and Ofsted needs to measure schools more thoroughly on equalities. The grandstanding and virtual signalling must be challenged by revealing the real truths. The racism, which is endemic in schools, must first be exposed before it can be dismantled. And I think the starting point should be that if the school is racist, until they prove themselves otherwise. Further, and most importantly, we must equip Black girls and Black boys with the tools that move them from victimology to resistance onto empowerment. And in case you were wondering, this is a silhouette that I used. And at the online school, after a series of meetings where they were schooled on the teacher's ignorance, inaccuracies and stereotypes, the racism was eventually acknowledged by the owner. And my mum and I have been invited to become members of a working group on racial equality. And trust me, we will not be invisible. Thank you.
Marina, thank you so much. Tyra, are you ready to go next?
Are you ready for me?
Yes.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name's Tyra. I was born and raised in South London. And I want to start by saying I I'm not going to say this in a bad way, but I was one of the lucky people whose parent worked very, very hard, and I got the opportunity to go to a private school in my early years. So obviously, with private schools, they were predominantly white, and I was around a lot of Caucasian people, not to say anything bad. And after primary years, I left there and I went to, you know, a regular state school. And obviously, it's not to say it was foreign, but obviously I came across very well spoken, and it was sort of weird to a lot of people. And I got called a lot of names for that, like coconut or Oreo, to say I'm brown on the outside, but obviously different on the inside. And obviously that was hurtful for me. It caused a lot of tears, but I did get over it. And obviously being in a different environment, I sort of felt the need to change myself to fit in. So I was getting into different types of situations, and nothing that the schools that I went to were able to fully support. So one time I left one secondary school and I went to another one, and this was also predominantly white, but it was obviously just a public school. And I lasted 3 days. Nothing that I purposely did, but I joined the school first off. I had really, you know, thick eyebrows, and I wore a biker jacket, but obviously that was my style. And there was one teacher in particular in the school. She was very powerful, and I think it must have been my second day, and I was sitting in the classroom. I was sitting at the back. I was new to the school. I didn't know anyone. I asked the teacher if I could stay at the back because I felt some sorts of anxieties, and I didn't really want to sit at the front because I didn't know anyone. He didn't even say anything to me directly. He just called another teacher for support. I walked past the teacher and she jumped back and said, "Did you guys see that?" Everyone was confused, but she tried to make it seem like I had pushed her or I was aggressive. And she wrote in so many reports I was aggressive, I instigated some sort of situation, and that school ended for me. I didn't go back. And obviously that was a prime example where I felt like it was unprovoked, and I feel like just because of my colour, she felt some sort of anger towards me. And on top of that, I feel like, let me fast forward a little bit, because obviously we're short of time, to this Black Lives Matter thing. I remember I was sitting in a history lesson, and obviously it was getting obviously a little bit boring. But it wasn't until recently with these Black Lives Matter movements that I sat down with family, had a lot of time to reflect, and I understand. I remember Zahra mentioned at the start that a lot of history is rid from us, like our power is really hidden. Like people like Malcolm X, I never knew who Malcolm X was until recently, and it's crazy. So I just find, I 100% agree with what she was saying about the fact that in terms of changes to school systems, changes in the Black community, I feel like they genuinely do need to start from schools, because that's where the next generation learn their things from. And that's pretty much all I have to say about it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Taya,
Okay.
do you want to go next?
I want to flip her.
Hi everyone, my name's Tia. I'm 17 years old, currently in college. Really, I never had like an outright racism experience in school. I really had the underlying oppressive kind of racism. In school, I was labelled the whole way through my school experience. I was labelled as the angry Black girl that no one could ever talk to, and etc. etc. And the reason, like a lot of the time, the reason why they would call me the angry Black girl is because I don't like disrespect, I don't like injustice, I don't like any of that. So when I see it, I call it out. And in some cases in school, they do not like to hear it. And that is why they kind of pushed me apart, and they literally tried to kick me out their school. And that's why I can't really say, okay, like like here's a race, like how everybody else has their experience and their examples. But I can say, like, I know in for example, like one day they had inspectors in the school, and because already I was labelled, I was put in a room for the whole day, couldn't come out. There was like a bunch of us in that room. We couldn't come out because they thought like basically we was going to make problems in the school and something was going to go wrong. And I feel like with a lot of these schools, the only thing that they care about is their image, and they'll paint this picture. Oh, we're here for all cultures, all races. Can I tell you, my school didn't even want to celebrate Black History Month. We literally had to force them into having an event for Black History Month. And when we asked them to have the event for Black History Month, they literally shut it down to where only 20 people could be in the room. And it's like, it's worse because that my school that I went to was literally, it was a swarm of Black people. Basically, there was hardly any white people in there. So you'd think that they would try to accommodate the majority, but that wasn't the case. And in a lot of the cases, it was literally they were trying to throw out a lot of the Black people, and you could tell. But for me personally, I really agree with what Lorena was saying, just about having people in the school that are for both, that are just in the middle as a voice for the Black people, to where they're not being oppressed by people that are above everybody else. And yeah, that's all I really have to say.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Soha, do you want to go next?
Hi, my name's Zahra. I'm half Sudanese, half European, and I just finished university like last week. So one of the questions that was asked actually was like, with all this adversity, how did we all, I guess, get success in education? The only way I was able to do it was literally to just make my own little, I guess, environment for me. I couldn't rely on other people at all, because I was born in Holland, so I'd already gotten Zwarte Piet, which is like a racist celebration, Christmas, where they go into your schools as well. And then I was picked to be the thief, because the little Santa's helper was a black slave, and then they made him into like a black little like helper and everything. So already from education, I already thought like anti-blackness was normal. I already thought like, you know, like Holland is very, very white. So I already thought when I came to England and I slowly started seeing aggressions against me, like being labeled trouble, being labeled angry, you know, controlling, this and that, even when I was not being controlling or angry, it gaslighted me into thinking that was the narrative and that was what I was when it wasn't. So then when it came to like my secondary school, and like primary school time, it's worse when it's in I guess English class. I guess it's worse because like when you're looking at language and how language is used, I never saw any positive language towards how you describe me. Like people would literally say my eyes were the color feces. They describe my skin as the color of mud. Everything that was bad. Like that, I'm an artist as well. That's why I graduated from fine art, and I had to retake the color of black being a color. It's not just black. It's not just a shadow. It's not bad. You know, there's so many, like even I had to go out of my way within college, because I did sociology as well, to literally be researching Black sociologists. I had to go out of my way to explain to some of my sociology teachers why some of the things that we're looking at, case studies or, you know, data, I need to know the years, I need to know what city, I need to know demographic, I need to know this. You can't label Black people when we're in England, especially with me, with like Africans, with Jamaicans, with every other type of like Black identity and Black diaspora, because we're all different. And there's going to be different reasons why, say, if we're looking at sociology and education, and then when you're looking at that type of data and you're telling a whole class of mostly white kids, X, Y, and Z, 80% of Black kids are going to get kicked out, you push into their heads that there's racial stereotypes is okay to say out loud, you know, and then it just perpetuates a lot of things. So I guess in education, I constantly had to go teaching the teachers, you know, like school uniform as well. I just feel like I was over-sexualized. My body was so over-sexualized. Like the harassment that I had with, so I guess a negative aspect of it for both sides, you know, the white girls and the Black girls, was that the Black girls were over-sexualized. So like my body, my bum, and just like everything else, it was just like exotic. It was like, oh, I want to grab, I want to touch. So I was literally always having my bum slapped. I was literally always having people like grind past me and all this. And I was in secondary school. I was just like every other kid out there. And like, I didn't feel good enough to speak up, because I was literally seeing everywhere around me, if I spoke up, I was the problem. And I was already labeled argumentative and this and that and that. But then the white girls, it would only be because people would be like, oh, white girls have no body, da, 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 da. It's all black girls. But it wasn't positive attention. I didn't want an attention. And I guess the white girls internalized that and did misogynoir, where they did sexism against me as well, where they all hypersexualized me. And it made me feel like I was an object, where I couldn't tell them not to touch my hair. I was in a canteen and I was just there with my friend, just trying to get some food. And two boys behind me thought it was funny to just grab into my puff and just grab my hair. And I turned around and looked at a teacher, and I was ready to hit them, because I was like, these teachers have been doing nothing all year. All these years I've been in the school, teachers have been nothing. And you can only get so far until literally you feel so much anger towards the fact that you are touching my person. And I don't feel safe as a female, as a black person, and just as a minority within any type of like school system. So I guess within education, it was just literally me having to push myself to be there. Like, I couldn't rely on anything around me. I literally had to always double check texts that included black people, because I just didn't trust the sources at all. So the only real thing that I had to lean back on was literally having to find my black identity and my Ethiopian Sudanese heritage. But even then, like, I would always be made the mouthpiece, you know, within history. The only history I learned was literally about the American slave trade. Britain loved to cut itself out of that. They didn't talk about what Britain did. They only talked about Britain trading silver and this and that. But it literally made the white people in my class feel like we're better than Americans. We're better than the Germans. But it was like, no, you man are not better, because you're literally calling me a Zulu African booty scratcher. You're literally in IT getting everybody on their like 30 odd desktops. All of you man have naked African tribe people on the, and you're saying that I'm that, and you're turning around in history class when it comes to slavery and staring at me. Whenever we did How to Kill a Mockingbird, the N-word came up, you stare at me. Like, it was all these little microaggressions, and no one taught people not to do. And teachers, what vexed me about teachers is like, you're making me stand out worse. Why is my existence making you man be unprofessional? Why is my hair distracting you? Why can't you learn to just accept different hairstyles and different this? Like, why is it that like girls could literally have a beehive, like a bun atop of their head? That's not distracting, but my fro is distracting, my braids are distracting. It would literally be the policing of me. And it was like, can I not be a child? Could I not be 12-year-old going through puberty? Can I not be 13 going through puberty? Why do you have to sexualize me as if I'm on some porn site? And it just didn't make sense. So I guess everything was just very skewed against me. It just made me feel, you know, for a very long time, made me doubt my own femininity. And I had to take that back. So I had to go for education. On top of that, my parents didn't go for, you know, European, Western education. My dad went for education to a point. My mum didn't go through to like secondary school, all this. And then on top of that, they're immigrants in this country. They had to learn English. I couldn't get them to help me with my UCAS, couldn't get them to help me with my homework, couldn't get them to help me with anything. And I can't tell them that I'm getting sexually harassed at school. I can't tell them that the teachers don't believe me. And on top of that, I have mental health issues. I've got anxiety problems, and I've got panic attack, and I've got depression. But oh no, I'm lying. I'm lying because I just want medication. I just want to be a drug addict. Obviously, I just go to the nurse's office because I blanked out from having a panic attack because I just don't want to be doing PE. It was all these little subliminal things. And then once I got higher up into sociology and I read about like teacher bias and like how people just naturally think black people just love to be into drugs, it just literally made me, I guess, if that fueled me more to be in education. So I literally kept championing the black voices and narratives within all levels of education I could get to. And I kept talking to, I guess, higher ups, but it was always a silence that they were complicit in the little acts that they didn't want to call it out because they felt bad. And it was just this always, I guess, feeling of having to justify that I'm a human being, you know? If you're having to explain to someone why something's not right and why if it was done to them, they wouldn't like it, you're already on a different ground because you're already having to teach them that I'm a human being just like you're a human being. You're like, you wouldn't have to explain to them if they already saw you as a human being. And I think black girls as well in education, it's just so hard. Like the dress codes are against us. You know, the simplest thing, even like if you raise your voice the tiniest bit, it's tone policing. If you call out, you know, someone staring, a male teacher staring at you, oh no, he was just, you know, this and that. I feel like there's so much, like, even language, you speak properly. I switch a lot with my accents. I switch. I can sound like I'm from South. I can sound like I'm from North. It's whatever it is. Because I got bullied for having a Dutch accent. And now I got bullied when I tried to do a Northern accent. And now I guess like whenever I talk to people, especially of authority, I do not talk like I'm from the streets. I don't talk like this. I just switch into something that's more, you know, tame, I guess, for their ears, because I don't be ridiculed. I've been ridiculed a lot. I have the information, I have the statistics, I have the backup, I have the research, but they don't want to listen to me if I talk like I'm on the streets because I'm a ruffian, I'm riffraff. And I guess all of this just I guess a lot of the times that's why some of my friends don't want to go into higher education, because they don't want to constantly feel like I'm just in a pond full of people that's staring at me and trying to stare me out and get me into trouble. So I guess, like, I don't know, education's been a challenge for me, but it's something that I would never regret going into, because I have, you know, a privilege being in this Western country. I need to take what I can when I can. But it would have been nice if I had just been treated like a child when I could have, and not been hypersexualized and just being put on a list of naughty kids and then being token black kid on pictures, or, you know, the Rabina. I feel like a lot of us might have had this where Ofsted comes in and they have to make sure there's one black kid in each class, because they have to make sure when Ofsted comes in they can see that it's diverse. And then teachers purposely talk about, you know, oh yes, like Soha's you're Muslim, aren't you? Because I was Muslim back then. I converted to Christianity, but I would always use, first of all, being a black woman, and on top of that being a token Muslim in the class. So every question would be directed towards me. And it just, I don't think anybody wants their existence within education to literally be about what you can see. I want it to be about my brain, my intelligence, how you can help me further it. So yeah, that was just my experience.
Thank you so much, Soha. Shia, do you want to go next?
So hi guys, my name's Chey, and I'm 17 years old and I live in South London. I went to state school for most of my life, for like all that I can remember. And the racism I experienced was more like racism disguised as compliments, because like in the UK, it's not really outright racism like it is in the US. It's more these little comments here and there that you don't really realise is racism until, like, say you're going home and like you're really thinking about it. So for example, I'd get a lot, you sound white, because I do code switch as well. And I used to get that quite a lot because I speak quite eloquently. And at first you kind of think, oh, okay, that's kind of a compliment, but it really, really isn't. That's really damaging to people's like mental state, because it makes you think that, oh, to be eloquent is to be white, and to be white is to be good, basically. And that like only good, basically. I also got a lot of, you're not from South London, because I spoke this way or because of the way I acted. I got a lot of, you're quite scary, or like you're a scary person, I don't really like talking to you, I didn't think you would be a nice person. Me, I'm actually a lovely person, I talk to anybody, but I got that quite a lot. And it kind of just makes you really sad, like you didn't do anything to provoke that, you're just being the way you know how to be, and people see you as a threat immediately before they even get to see who you are as a real person. So I got that one a lot. I also got a lot of, as Soha said, like tokenism. So in 2018, I won the young deputy mayor of my borough, and therefore my school used me a lot in like Ofsted meetings or meetings with like higher up people. If the school were having an interview, I would always be there, and the comments I would get a lot of would be like, good for you, and in the sense that, oh, you're a black girl, well done for making it, which at first didn't really sound like a bad thing, like, yeah, good for me because I got into that position. But in the same sense, it's like, oh yeah, people like, you can't do it and you did it, so well done, basically, which I didn't like that a lot. Hair was a really, really big thing in state school, because the school I went to was actually mostly black, so it was quite controversial. But I would get a lot that I'm not like other black girls. Like me, I never wore weave or wigs, which is not a bad thing at all. But from the teachers, I'd get, oh look, you're not like them, like it's a compliment, when it actually doesn't matter. I got that quite a lot, and that really upset me. And like looking back, because most of this was like year 7, year 8, and like looking back, I get annoyed at myself for not speaking up back then. But again, at the same time, I can't blame myself because I didn't know that much then, and like I know a lot more now, which is why I tend to speak up about it more now. And I remember one time I had Marley twists, and I was like super, super excited. I thought they looked so lovely. And I remember I walked into school and my head teacher looked at me, and then he said, those look interesting. And like, it just made me really, really sad. It deflated my mood. I wanted to take them out the next day. I was crying to my mom saying I don't like them anymore. It was a really sad experience, but I'm glad that now I know who I am, and I'll walk into their money twists and like I'll own them 100%. So it's been a weird experience, and there's definitely a lot to improve. I think representation is one of the key things that we need to change, because if we saw more people, Black women, in positions like that, then it wouldn't be so shocking that a person like me is in a position like that. So I think that's the main thing that we need to improve in terms of representation. And lastly, I've noticed that schools aren't really willing to accept the fact that they are in a position to change. Because I remember in year 10, my school didn't really celebrate Black History Month. So myself and my friends, we created these posters about Black History Month, talking about like Black inputs in music, in economics, etc. And the headline was "Teaching You What School Doesn't." And the school was really, really, really angry about that. And we actually had to change it to "Teaching You What the Curriculum Doesn't" instead of "What the School Doesn't," because they didn't really want to seem like the culprits. And like that was a really, really huge thing. So that just made me realize that schools really don't want to like own up and like take ownership of basically. But yeah, that was my experience.
Brilliant, thank you so much. I'm going to ask Tyra to come back on because she wanted to say something else, and then I'm going to go to Ebenita. So Tyra, I'll just unmute you. Thank you, Chey.
I just wanted to sort of add to the point of like, you know, indirect racism in schools, because obviously I remember Tia mentioned about how she went around schools and she was labelled as the angry Black girl, because I can really resonate with that. I was always one person that if I'm passionate about something, it may, to understanding people, it would come across as passion, but to obviously other people, especially in schools, they would see it as, you know, aggressive. And I just felt like, obviously, it did have a big impact on how I approached schools and the opportunities that I was allowed to take. And it wasn't until I moved schools and I had to come with a whole completely different approach to even be able to be considered to go forward for certain things. On top of that, what was I going to say? Sorry, guys. On top of that, I feel like, schools, I just feel like schools really don't do enough to really sort of implement that, you know, the strengths that Black people in the school system do need, if you know what I mean. Because I know, like, obviously I've been in positions where, you know, like, for example, a prefect position. I've been in a position where, like, we're applying for prefect positions and all the teachers are excited to nominate this person. And then there's 5, you know, Black kids in the back shooting their hands up, but they're sort of side-eyed. And that also brings me on to what Soha said about Ofsted coming in and there's always one Black kid in the classroom. Like I said before, I went to a private school in my early years. So obviously I was well-spoken, I was smart. I can't remember what you called it, I'm not sure what it's called, but where you can articulate yourself for certain audiences. I was one of those people that did that. And I was always labelled as a person that's, oh, you're really smart for a Black girl. And that, to me, is offensive. Like, hearing that constantly around me is offensive. And obviously, I've been through, you know, the different experiences, the adversity. So it would make sense. But hearing for a Black girl, and I know I'm not the only person that goes through it, it shouldn't be normalised to me. I just don't think it should be normalised. I just feel like, yeah, we need to be more educated. That's my last bit. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Such incredible stories that all of you have shared. I'm going to bring in Ebenita. But before I do, I'll just say all of the stories have completely resonated and have been hugely powerful. And Ebenita, as she shares her story, will also be sharing how she used that to fuel her development of an organisation called Milk and Honeybees, that is a girl-led organisation, and she'll tell us a little bit more about that as well. So Ebenita, I'll unmute you now.
Thank you, Muna. First of all, I want to commend and send love and love hearts to every single girl that spoke. I'm going to try not to cry, but I resonate with your stories so deeply. Lorena, you are so young, so eloquent, so beautiful. Continue to use your voice and continue to share power with all of us who could not use our voice when we was in school at your age. So I'm Ebenita. Like most of these girls, I was labeled bad, angry, aggressive. And, you know, going through this education system for me was very difficult because not only was I always tall, I was always like the bigger girl. So I felt sexualization in terms of my height and as well as my body shape. And then the adultification came when I moved out of my parents' house at 15. So I moved out at 15 and I'm 27 now. So if you do the maths, that's a long time that I've been living alone. And when I was 15, I got put in an 18+ hostel because I looked bigger and I spoke bigger than I was. And like I said, I was very adultified. And the question about how did we succeed through education? Well, education wasn't always a successful place for me. At the time that I was in education and I had just moved out, I also lost a lot of friends to violence in the community, which is something that the education system doesn't take into consideration. It doesn't take into consideration how Black girls navigate and show up for the world and no one shows up for them. It doesn't take into consideration how Black girls navigate through education and spend more time in their class, making sure that their male counterparts are okay, making sure that everybody else is well behaved. All of us have been there, you know, when the supply teacher comes and everybody wants to act up, but we're the ones trying to keep peace and we instantly get told that we're being loud, whereas we're only trying to do the job that the teacher clearly could not do. I think for me, resonating with a lot of these girls is touching me more than it should, because this is the only space and platform that has given Black girls a voice to talk about their experience in education. And for me, we should not have to create these spaces. These spaces should already exist. So I want to commend you, Muna, for doing this for us. We really appreciate you. So I started Milk and Honey Bees, as it is called, in 2016. And I started it because a young man in Lewisham was killed. And his death resonated with me personally and professionally. And I saw my whole life flash before me. I saw girls who were as young as 13 mobilizing and organizing in their communities rather than healing. I saw girls wearing armor of protection rather than looking after themselves. And I said to myself, as a graduate, so I just graduated with a 2-1 in criminology, after being told that I would be nothing. I had just gotten my first full-time job working in the youth offending service after being told that I would be nothing. And I was guilty of doing what a lot of Black women who go into professions like I do and stuck working with boys. After this young man was killed, it would have been wrong of me not to take the position to champion and advocate for the rights of Black girls. I saw, like I said, girls as young as 13 doing things that I was doing. And so I read this book, Milk and Honey. And when I read it, I was like, this author, who does she think she is writing about my life? Who does she think she is writing about something that I can resonate with? And I really was angry. So I gave it to one of the young girls who was around the area that I was working in. And like a lot of the time, I didn't want to work with the girls. And she was pushing and pushing and pushing. And she read the book with me and said, I hope you're going to do something about it now. And I said, wow, what pressure you've put on me. But I did. I started Milk and Honey, which is an expressive, safe space for young girls to put themselves first. And our ethos is allowing girls to flourish and put her first. And her stands for healing, empowerment, and resilience. And the reason being is because a lot of girls that I've supported, myself included, we don't get to heal. Whether it's our experience in education or our experience in the justice system and or the health and or the community, we don't get to heal. Empowerment, we don't have spaces where Black girls can feel empowered to strive, where Black girls can feel empowered to support each other. Because as we know, we can sit here and talk about education, but also within our community, because of how they've put us against each other, it is very difficult for Black girls to find a space where they can support their friends. But I'm glad that is changing. And resilience, because, you know, Black girls are the most resilient creatures on this earth. They are beautiful, they are eloquent, and they are creative. And that's why I started Milk and Honey. I'm just going to talk to you about a few things. The reason why I use creative expression is because as I was doing the work, I realized that there was no services I could support or signpost young girls to. The mental health service is inadequate in supporting young people, especially young Black girls, in understanding their abilities and their mental health complications. There's an overprescribing of drugs or an underprescribing of drugs for the experience of young girls with mental health. And so I decided to go and do a therapeutic practitioner course. So I'm currently a therapeutic youth practitioner, and I've done that to serve my community, but mainly the girls, so that they have someone that they can talk to, relate to, and really see. Like I said, I've been through a lot, but I'm glad that I came through the other side, and I'm now using that to support other girls. And so creativity, Black girls are very creative. You saw Lorenda's silhouette there, and the fact that she spoke about art is why I use art as an expression for young Black girls to be able to say and feel and eloquently deliver their messages in a way that they will not be silenced, because the education system is not built to captivate, but it's built to destroy the expressions of these Black girls. And so why not create a space where they can listen to their Beyoncés, where they can listen to their Meg Thee Stallions, and where they can act out and pretend and play like the beautiful creatures that they are, because a lot of us have lost our childhood due to the education system adultifying us. Why schools? The reason why I decided to reach out to Muna is because I myself, like I said, I work with young girls who come from schools. I get referrals from schools. And a lot of the time when I read the referral forms, it's always bad, angry, aggressive, dissociated, hard to reach, all of the language that teachers like to use to describe every other counterpart apart from white girls. When I get referrals from white girls, I get anxious, sad, family breakdown. And I always have to think, what about the Black girls? And so for me, it's important that we change the education system. We decolonize the education system to take into consideration the fact that Black girls exist, that the liberation of Black girls is paramount in order for you to work with the Black boys that you like to over-sexualize and fetishize about. Because if I typed into Google Scholar right now, how to work with a Black boy, or the educational exclusion rates of Black boys, about over 2 million research projects would probably come out in the UK. I can't do the same for the Black girls, but don't worry, girls, I've got you. I will be doing this research for and with you. Trauma. One of the biggest aspects of trauma is the reason why I do this work. I myself was a traumatized Black girl. I was a traumatized Black girl because the community that I lived in was heightened by crime that is not our fault. Black on Black crime does not exist, because when white people commit crime, we do not use the term white on white crime. So we need to abolish this Black on Black crime. I grew up in a community that is full of violence because young people are not taught how to cultivate their emotions. They're not taught how to express, because we would rather teach them how to use a protractor. I'm 27 and I've never used a protractor since I left school. In fact, I hardly brought my math set to school. So that should also tell you something about the education system. Our girls are unheard, unhealed, and unseen. And we need more services to be able to support them and cultivate their expressions so that they are able to be seen, heard, and healed. We do not have curriculum that supports, and like these lovely, beautiful, eloquent ladies have spoken about, there's no curriculum that supports and champions the roles of Black girls. I recently did a quiz with the girls on Milk and Honey, and I showed a picture of Angela Davis, and 2 out of 10 girls knew who she was. That didn't break my heart, because I knew why I put that picture in there. And it has now opened the conversation and the development of Black girlhood curriculum that Milk and Honey will be creating and delivering virtually. So please do look out for that. What I can say for me is that running Milk and Honey, I created Milk and Honey and I called the girls bees. And I'm going to leave you with a message as to why I call the girls bees. I call the girls bees because bees are not supposed to fly. They're actually oddly shaped. So their bodies and their wings are not the same size, but they do not know that, and they continue to fly anyways. And just like every single Black woman that I know, and every single Black girl that I know, and the ones that I'm going to come across in the future, you are eloquent and you fly like bees, and you strive and you always come out of the other side. But it's time now for you to stop coming out of the other side and having to deal with things on your own. Believe me, you are heard and you are healed and you are seen. I just want to play something from one of my young girls, because I always feel like I can do all the talking about the work that I do, but it's more important to bring the voice of young people into the room. So I hope you can hear this.
And I'm here to talk about my experiences in a British school. Being a young black girl in a British school was pretty tough, as I felt like I was always provoked and picked on not only by students but staff. I was always seen as the aggressive, defiant, rude, angry type. I'm pretty sure I can speak for most of us coloured kids when I say this. It got to the point where me being in these sort of situations affected my not only my status in school, but my education as well, as my grades did drop dramatically due to me either being excluded over silly reasons or being put in isolation for very silly reasons. It got to a point where I was always felt like I was being observed and watched and always judged by many staff as well. Like I said, I'm pretty sure I can speak for most of us when I say this. It wasn't only just the black boys in school being not tortured but provoked as well, but us females too be treated very unfairly. It got to the point where in many situations I was never heard. My voice was never heard. Even when it was heard, I felt like it was always overlooked, as I felt like they didn't take me as serious, or what I was saying as serious, or they thought it would be a joke, or I wasn't being as truthful as they wanted me to be in a way. Which was very confusing, because if they were to compliment me, they would really say I was very intelligent, but my voice would slow me down, as in me talking back would bring me down educational wise. It got to the point where I was transferred to another school. That school then introduced me to milk and honey, and I could honestly say it was, for me to go, was the best decision ever, as it helped me not only physically but mentally and with school a lot. I had Emmy there she was basically my mentor to have one-to-ones with, and she helped me be the shy, hidden person to them being this most outspoken, independent, confident, powerful young black girl. And I'm proud to say I love the colour of my skin. I wouldn't change it for the world. Even I don't care how I'm looked, as now I feel like I am the most confident person ever, and I will continue being the most confident girl ever. I'm not going to put myself in that position where I'm always seen as the problem ever again. I feel like me being in milk and honey has helped me also career-wise.
So yes, I just thought it would be important to bring her voice into the room, because that is her experience. For me, I'm going to leave you with this, because it's very important to understand from an academic perspective the reason why I do the work that I do, as well as the reason why I decided to go and get trained in loss, bereavement, mental health, and therapeutic support. Defining freedom cannot amount to simply substituting it with an inclusion. Countering the criminalization of Black girls requires fundamentally altering the relationship between Black girls and the institutions of power that have worked very hard to subject them. And that quote stood with me when I first read Monique Morris's book, and it will continue to stay with me, because my mission is to continue to amplify and ensure that Black girls flourish and put her first. And like I said, prioritizing her is her healing, her empowerment, and her resilience. Thank you, and well done to every single young lady that spoke.
Ebenita, thank you so much. And each and every one of you, thank you for sharing your stories. They're incredibly powerful. There were times where I was holding back the tears as well. But I'm just so honoured and privileged that you've chosen this as a space to share your stories with us. We're going to go through the questions now, and I'm going to unmute all of our speakers. actually, what I'll do is, if you just wave at me when you want to respond to a question, I'll unmute you, just so that we can get rid of the background noise. And we'll try and get through as many questions as we can. So the first question that we have is, somebody's asked, can I ask whether the panelists have had positive experiences of allyship with teachers in schools? What did it look like? Does anybody want to respond to that? I think, Soha, you had your hand up, and then Taya and Tyra, I'll come to you as well, but I'll put Soha first.
So it's actually weird, because I actually had I had a lot of white male teachers actually be my allies, opposed to like the white female teachers or the black female teachers be my allies. I think in my school is very diverse. It's very, very diverse. It was like full of white kids and black kids, like Middle Eastern, and on top of that like Slovakian and Roma. But in art, especially because I was prominently an artist, I was known as an artist in my school, they would always talk for me because they spent the most time with me. They spent dinner times with me after school and everything. So when teachers would literally try and talk about how I started something or I was aggressive, they'd be like, no, you need to talk to her. You need to ask her, why did she perform like that? Because Soha's not like that. And a lot of the times they would bring me forth for things, like they entered me into competitions without me knowing it, and then they got me awards and they helped me here and there. Like my school, people had piercings in their face. It's relevant because I got facial piercings because I started looking more into my, black identity. And my mum's Ethiopian, and Ethiopians, they do have facial piercings. So I just wanted to try it out. It's a policy not to have piercings, but because literally like everybody around, especially white kids, we had emos. I'm back then, like I started secondary school in 2010. So like there was the age of the emos. They all had facial piercings. No one did anything. No one got kicked out. I got kicked out of school for it. I got kicked out of school. I got belittled. I got called stupid and all this. And I said that, no, I'm going to end up nowhere in life. I'm a vain, glorious girl. I only kept my vanity in my face. But I was literally like, I would gladly take them out if you would literally put policy towards everybody, but they wouldn't. And the thing is, when I came back to secondary school, I didn't want to do GCSEs at that point. I was in tears. I literally had PTSD from it. I literally could not step into a classroom without literally breaking down and blacking out from panic attacks. I felt like every person's eyes were on me, and they said they were thinking the same things that this teacher had said to me, that I was stupid, I was vain, But my art teachers were literally the ones coaxing me back into classes. They were the ones having to bring me there and take their time out. I think as a teacher, it's your job, especially because education isn't to stop and start the curriculum. It's all these little, covert things that you teach and socialize into kids, into people that are going to become adults. It's these things that you have to stand up. Especially, it doesn't matter if you're friends with that teacher. It's not about your feelings either. It's about the fact that this is a child in your hands. This is a child. I see teachers more than I see my own parents. And you're out here, you're gonna let me literally drown in the sea where I feel that for my culture, I can't talk back to an adult. So I can't talk back to an adult, and my tongue is very silenced. And I know if my parents get told that I talk back to a teacher, my parents are divorced, so that even adds another layer to it. I'm literally going to get whooped, and that's a whole different thing within the community. But I can't be known for talking back to a teacher. So I guess allyship for teachers is literally speaking up when you hear something, changing the rhetoric, changing the adjectives and the way you describe students, and also not having such a short fuse with students who question or ask, not feeling as if someone says, I want to talk to a black teacher about X, Y, and Z, like colorism. White teachers will not understand colorism. Even if you teach it to them, they will never experience it, so they won't know on a innate level what it feels like. So if I was to come up to someone and ask, like if I was to come to my art teacher and ask them about colorism, they direct me to the correct person. They wouldn't get their feelings hurt in the process because they wouldn't put themselves in front of it. So I think allyship is literally about putting your feelings and examining them and feeling and understanding that it's not about you, it's about your student. It's about the fact that you are their carer, and you should be looking at them just as any other child that you see that you feel resembles you. It shouldn't be about any of this. It should be about the very fact that I'm a human being, and I just want care from you. Like I look at you with no hardness in my heart, so I don't feel like the teacher should have looked at me with hardness in their heart. So yeah, like I did have allyship, and it came from the white males that everybody's persecuting in the society. So that also gave me positive affirmations of males. Like I didn't look at white males as if they were inherently going to be against me. It's actually the opposite. Like I've seen more allyship from white males calling out like misogyny and all this and sexism against me.
Thank you so much. Tia, do you want to go next? And then Tyra, I'll come to you.
Yeah, my allyship in school, there were like, as Soha said, there were a couple of the teachers that like you knew that that you could talk to them. But for me personally, the only allyship that I even had that was kind of above in the main team was literally three black teachers. That's all I had, and literally they couldn't even do anything for me. The only thing that they literally could do was secure me with words, and they literally saved me. As I said before, that the school was going to kick me out. They were the people that helped me not get kicked out, because they sat me down and they said, like, you're on the list, like you're on your way out, and if you don't basically fall into what they want you to do, you're going to be gone, and it's just going to be the end. And through the whole, like, that's how it was through my whole schooling. Even the fact that one teacher, literally, when I came to the school, she was my head of year. She would, as teachers are, like, they will support you. By the time I got to year 10 and I had the label, she was done with me. She didn't think I was going to get no GCSEs. She was just ready for me to go. And then I ended up being like a prefect in the school. I ended up getting basically all my GCSEs. And by the end, it was like, oh, well done, Tia. But it wasn't a well done when I was in the process of these things, you understand? And it's like, I feel like it's so important for there to be teachers in the schools that are there for the children to just talk to about the things that they might be feeling. Because even the three black teachers that I had that were supporting me, they were also in the process of getting oppressed by the teachers that were above them. So it was literally all of, like, coming all against us all. And it was like, what can we do? Like, where are we going to go? So I feel like teachers going into the school need to, like, really try and support, and when things are wrong, just call it out. Like, just call it out and just be real with the kids, because I feel like teachers try to hide it from the kids that they're getting oppressed, but we can see, do you know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of teachers should just talk about it and just be real with the kids. But yeah.
Thank you so much. Tyra?
Okay, so I've obviously been through a lot of unpredictable adversity. So I've been to a number of schools, and in the different schools, I was labelled as a different type of black girl, you know, the aggressive, or, you know, something's going on, or, you know, too smart for a black girl, until I reached my recent school, because I never really used to get on with a lot of teachers. In my first school, there was a very, very, very empathetic teacher that I really did become close to, I resonated with in my first school. And it wasn't until I left there that I realised that a lot of teachers do have sort of, you know, discouraging, I wouldn't say malicious, but they're very discouraging of your potential. And it wasn't until my last school when I realised I had to change my approach. And obviously I, not forcefully, but I changed my approach to all teachers. So now that if a situation does occur, it's like, it's, you know, Tyra, she wouldn't do that. Do you know what I mean? But I feel like I had to change myself to do that, because I know how schools approach students when they act a certain way. And I also feel like, yeah, sorry. I feel like a lot of teachers, obviously, their approach to you isn't, I'm lost for words. That's all I have to say for this one, I'm sorry.
That's no problem. Ebonita, I'll come to you and then I'll move on to this next question.
I just not preparing my stuff.
Tyra, it's okay. You're entitled to feel the way that you feel. I just want to say one thing about allyship, which is just because you are an ally, it doesn't mean that you can use it against these girls. I think my experience in education with white teachers who describe themselves as allies would be, can you not see what I'm doing for you and you're still misbehaving? And I'm like, sis, bro, no. So that is what I have to say. Just because you are an ally, do not ally yourself and then question a black girl for their behavior or anything to do with who they are just because you stand next to them. Because like I said, and I'm going to keep saying, Black girls show up for everybody who shows up for them. And yeah, that's what I have to say.
Brilliant. And that leads us nicely onto the next question, which I was asked by somebody, and it's a double-layered one. So it says, how do the panel think the experiences of young Black men and young Black women differ? And how can young Black men look out for young Black women more? So does anybody want to respond to that? So Ebenita, and then Tyra, I'll come to you.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I think the first thing is what we need to stop doing is playing young Black men against young Black women. That's the first thing we need to do. We need to take into consideration the intersectionality of young Black women and girls to be able to even understand the roles and responsibilities that they play in supporting their male counterparts. I think the experiences are different yet similar, e.g., Black boys may be more likely to get stopped and searched out of school. However, Black girls may be more sexualized by police out of school. So there's an intertwining and there's a difference. They're all going back to the same community. The question that I have to ask back is, why is it that we continuously ask this question, but we lack research and evidence on our Black girls? We know that it's easier to hypersexualize Black boys. We know that it's easier to fetishize over Black boys because as much as they're deemed as angry, aggressive, and violent, a lot of people do enjoy the ability to calm down Black boys. But when it comes to Black girls, it's like, oh, she's difficult. And also I have to say this, because I can admit that I did not want to work with Black girls because I had that counter-transference. I had that whole, it's like looking in the mirror. I think a lot of Black teachers need to play a role and responsibility in order for them to be able to call out the differences and similarities for their Black counterparts within the school and the education system. The reason why Milk and Honey is not school-based and we go into schools is because A, I'm not prepared to see injustices in school that I'm not going to be able to call out because I'm just seen as the therapeutic practitioner. And because young people, as much as they spend time a lot in school, the community is what builds them. And hearing girls say that, oh, I was told I wasn't Black enough or I'm from the ghetto is something that happens in terms of Black girls. But when it's Black boys, it's more accepted and easier to work with. And, you know, we'll start a football program so that Black boys will stop carrying knives. But the reality is some of these Black boys that pass away, their female counterparts are their sisters, their cousins, their aunties. And so where's the line there? And also the difference for me with Black boys and Black girls, especially in education, is the willingness to do activism and the willingness to celebrate these months. And, you know, Black history shouldn't be a month, but that's probably a different conversation for a different day. But the fact is there's more of a willingness for Black girls to mobilize. And if we do not cultivate and support their mobilization, we are going to get more Black girls who go into systems in the workplace who are deemed as angry and aggressive. And that's why that question for me, as much as it's a great question from a professional stance, is a question that we need to stop asking, because it puts a line between, oh, a Black boy does this and a Black girl does this. How about we start talking more about the fact that Black girls are very unseen, and how can we support them in being able for you to reach the Black boys you so much sexualize and fetishize over.
Brilliant, thank you. And then Tyra, so just a reminder of the question, it's how do the panel think the experiences of young Black men and women differ, and how can young Black men look out for Black women more?
She pretty much took every point I was about to make out of my mouth. I definitely agree that a lot of Black boys, they do get, you know, like separated in terms of like their behaviors. It's just seen as, you know, aggressive, or they're acting out, or it's their nature. But they also do get a lot of things put in place, like, you know, youth clubs, predominantly boys, and footballs, and Lives Not Nice foundations mostly end up boys. And obviously females don't get as much support. It's just labelled as, you know, mental health or something's going on outside of school. And I feel like Soha said, obviously females enjoy a lot more of you know, the sexualizing, adulterifying, because I know for a fact that I know I'm quite mature for my age, but it doesn't sort of give any reason for anyone to approach me that way because I'm still my age. But boys do get a lot more support than girls. Girls are definitely unheard, but Evanita pretty much said everything I was about to say.
Brilliant, thank you. So I'll move on to the next question. And it asks, let me look for one. Okay, this one's good. If you could say anything to your teachers now, what would you say to them? So the teachers that you mentioned as part of your experience, and I can see everyone's hands are immediately up. So Tyra, I'll come to you first, and then Zahra, and then Chey, and then Tyra. So Tyra, I'll come to you first.
I would just like to say that I did it. Like, I got them grades, I came out, and I stayed in the school despite them trying to get me out. Like, I actually did it. That's all I was gonna say.
Brilliant, thank you. Zahra?
I'm gonna say I'm not vain. I actually graduated university and I'm gonna get my degree, and that I'm more than anything that any of these people put onto me. But also thank you so much for all the allyship that I got from teachers. You know, I'm not just gonna forget about all the good teachers that actually helped me get all these courses and do all this. Like, thank you to the people who believed in me, but I hope to the people that didn't. You man didn't perpetuate it in any other students. I hope it stopped with me and my year group. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Chey?
Well, firstly, I'm turning up in the fattest Marley twist you've ever seen in your life. And I'm going straight up to my teachers and I'm going to be like, I do not sound white. I sound like myself and I am strong, independent black woman and I can do it. That's the only thing I'll say to my teachers. And then I'll flick my hair and walk out the class.
Does anybody else want to come in? Tyra, did you want to? Yeah.
The one thing I would say to any teacher that had any sort of doubts against me is that in terms of students, underestimation is the biggest enemy of the system. It's just the biggest enemy. A lot of people have hidden potential. And in terms of the support, I think one of the teachers may be in this. In terms of support, it does not go unheard. Like, the power and the impact that you have on the lives of students that you genuinely support, because a lot of teachers is so wholehearted and involuntary, their devotion to students, and it really doesn't go unheard, and somehow it will get repaid. Karma's real. That's what I'm saying. That's all.
Yeah. And then Evanita? Oh.
What would I say to my teachers? I'd say I'm not angry. I was hurting. I'm not aggressive, but I'm strong. But my strength should not have been deemed because of how I looked. I would say to one teacher who used to get really frustrated with me, thank you for all the cookies that you gave me to calm me down. They really helped. But mainly I would say to my teachers, because I've gone back to my old secondary school to teach, collecting invoices and those things. But I would say to them, how you treated me probably hasn't changed for how you treat other Black girls. And, you know, the fact that it hasn't changed means that there's something that needs to change within the system that may be bigger than you, but it starts with you. The same way that all of us showed up for all of us today is the same way that we need you to show up for all of us all the time. And like she beautifully said, when you underestimate someone, they are only going to push the barriers more. And for me, all my teachers that doubted me have to see me doing talks like this. They have to hear me on the radio. They have to see me on BBC, you name it. I've done it all. And so I'm going to leave this with you girls in here. Whatever your teacher said you could not be, you will only be 10 times more, because my teachers have to watch me and think, oh my goodness. That's all I'm going to say.
Incredible. Any other responses to that question? Lovino, one moment.
I just want to say to both my teachers that I will always call you out if you ever do that to someone else, like another black girl. I'm watching you. That's what I have to say.
Thank you so much. And I think that is the perfect place to end it. You've all been incredible. Thank you so much for your stories. Those of you that have attended today, thank you for engaging with us, and thank you for the contributions on Twitter as well. Just a huge thank you. So this has been recorded and it'll be on the YouTube channel. All of you as speakers will get the links, and I'll also post it on Twitter using the hashtag as well. So please do share it, do listen to it, and please take what was being said today into action. Translate it into action. We don't want this to be a display of trauma and a display of experiences. It has to translate into meaningful action. The final of our sessions, so we've done, this is the third one, we've got one more coming up. So just a reminder for anybody who wants to have a look at the video clips. We have had a session on how schools have failed black boys. We've had a session on what we can do to improve the education for our black children and support them. We've now had the session on how schools have failed black girls and what we need to do. And the final session, which will be taking place next week, is focusing on the experiences of black parents within the education system. So tune in for that as well. And that will be the final section of our program on black education. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm going to end the session now, but all of our speakers, a round of applause. Well done. Thank you so much.